It's the year 2030, and across the United Kingdom, an uneasy tension fills the air. Only a few hours remain before the nation's first ever purge begins. A radical social experiment set to last 6 hours, during which nearly all crime will be legal. Since the announcement, the country has been gripped by a mixture of fear, curiosity, and disbelief. Governments, media, and citizens alike have debated fiercely about what this night will bring. In London streets, shop windows are boarded up, families lock their doors, and neighborhoods brace for the unknown. In quieter towns, the silence is thick, almost surreal, as if the whole nation is holding its breath. The government insists this is only a trial, a controlled test to measure the social impact, with strict rules in place to prevent certain extreme acts and protect essential services. Still, the idea of legal chaos, even for 6 hours, has many questioning their safety and morality. Emergency services have been put on limited alert. Police officers and paramedics stand ready but largely powerless to intervene unless absolutely necessary. Hospitals prepare for a surge in casualties, unsure what to expect. Inside homes, people prepare differently. Some stockpile supplies, board up windows, or set up security cameras. Others gather in groups, hoping safety lies in numbers. Still, many plan to stay awake all night, glued to news channels and social media, waiting to see how this first purge will unfold. The media runs live countdowns. Experts debate whether this experiment could reduce crime in the long run, or instead unleash uncontrollable violence that scars the nation. Voices of dissent rise. Human rights groups, faith leaders, and everyday citizens pleading for calm, for reconsideration, for mercy. But the government remains firm. The clock ticks down. 6 hours. This is the dawn of a new era. An era where laws are suspended and humanity's darkest instincts are set free. As the sun sets, the nation braces for what could be the longest 6 hours of its life, and no one knows who will survive the night. The idea seemed unthinkable just a decade ago. A nation known for its laws, order, and respect for justice now on the brink of legal chaos, even if only for a few hours. But behind the headlines and debates, the government's decision was shaped by years of mounting pressure. Crime rates had been climbing steadily throughout the 2020s. Violent incidents, property crimes, and social unrest stretched law enforcement thin. Economic challenges worsened the situation. Rising unemployment, inflation, and inequality fed frustration in communities across the country. Politicians faced growing criticism, accusations that the system was failing, that traditional methods of crime prevention were no longer enough. Against this backdrop, some officials began exploring radical solutions. One proposal gained unusual traction: a temporary suspension of laws to allow people to vent their anger, to purge their frustrations, with the hope that controlled chaos might reduce crime in the long term. The theory was controversial. Critics called it dangerous, reckless, and morally wrong. Supporters argued it was a bold experiment, a reset button for a society on edge. In the months leading up to 2030, intense debates filled parliamentary chambers, media outlets, and public forums. Safety measures were proposed. The purge would last only 6 hours. Key emergency services would remain operational, and certain severe crimes would still be prohibited. The government promised transparency and strict oversight, but the decision shocked many. The announcement was made with a mix of caution and conviction. "We must face hard truths," the Prime Minister said in a national address. "Our society is at a crossroads. This trial is an attempt to reclaim control and restore peace." The nation was divided. Some hoped for change, others feared destruction. And so, as the clock ticks toward the first Purge night, the UK prepares to test the limits of law, order, and humanity itself. The countdown nears its final moments. 10 minutes remain before the nation plunges into 6 hours of lawlessness, the first ever Purge night in UK history. Across cities and towns, the streets have fallen eerily silent. Some people hurry to finish boarding windows, double-check locks, and gather family members. Others stand frozen, staring out into the darkness, their faces etched with fear and uncertainty. Police officers remove their badges and radios, handing over weapons and stepping away from their posts. Emergency calls are routed to special crisis teams, but official intervention is suspended. In homes, last messages are sent, calls made, whispers of love, apologies, or promises to survive the night. News anchors count down with grim faces, reminding citizens of the rules and restrictions still in place. No attacks on emergency personnel, no use of heavy explosives, and no violence against minors. Social media buzzes with a strange mixture of panic and curiosity. Some post their plans to stay safe. Others threaten to take advantage of the chaos. Street cameras shut down one by one, as surveillance systems go offline in preparation for the purge. The city lights dim in many neighborhoods as residents turn off power to avoid attracting attention. From underground bunkers to high-rise apartments, the collective heartbeat of the nation speeds up. The final moments before midnight feel suspended in time, a fragile pause before the storm. And then, as the clock strikes 12, everything changes. The purge begins. Midnight strikes, and the city transforms. The usual hum of daily life is replaced by a tense, uneasy silence, quickly shattered by the distant sound of sirens, breaking glass, and shouted threats. The first wave of chaos sweeps through the streets. Some neighborhoods descend into anarchy as groups take advantage of the lawless hours to settle old scores, loot, or simply act on impulses long suppressed. Businesses shuttered just moments ago find their windows smashed, stores emptied of goods in frantic raids. Cars speed recklessly through darkened roads, horns blaring in a chaotic symphony. Police stations, now abandoned or understaffed, become targets of opportunistic attacks. Yet amid the violence, there are pockets of calm. Communities banding together, boarding windows and watching vigilantly from behind barricades. In homes, families clutch each other tightly, listening to the turmoil outside and praying for dawn. Hospitals brace for an influx of injuries, their emergency rooms overwhelmed but staffed by workers who cannot intervene in many situations due to the Purge rules. Social media explodes with frantic messages, live streams, and desperate calls for help. Some individuals use the night to commit dark deeds, while others wrestle with their conscience, questioning the morality of what unfolds. For many, the initial hours are a brutal awakening, a glimpse into humanity stripped bare of laws and civility. As the minutes tick by, the question remains: how much damage will 6 hours of unchecked freedom bring? The clock creeps closer to dawn, but the chaos shows no sign of slowing. For some, the first few hours were a frenzy of violence, raw, unfiltered, almost primal. Now, exhaustion sets in. The adrenaline fades, replaced by a heavy weariness that drapes over the streets like a suffocating fog. Desperation takes hold. In shattered neighborhoods, the wounded crawl through rubble, searching for help that may never come. Families huddle in dark corners, clutching what little they have left. Voices tremble with fear or plead for mercy, echoing in the empty shells of once vibrant homes. Some who had hoped to use the purge as a release find themselves trapped by the consequences, injured, hunted, or haunted by regret. Stories begin to surface of people who tried to protect loved ones, of neighbors who betrayed each other, of silent heroes risking everything to shield the vulnerable. In the shadows, despair battles with the faintest sparks of hope. For many, the night has become a crucible, a test of survival, morality, and humanity. As the final minutes approach, questions linger in the air. Who will emerge from this night changed? Who will carry the scars, visible or hidden, into the light of a new day? And will the price of this experiment be worth the hope of a better future? As dawn breaks over the United Kingdom, the nation awakens to a changed world. The 6 hours of lawlessness have ended, but their echoes linger everywhere. Streets are littered with broken glass, burnt-out vehicles, and the debris of shattered lives. Communities mourn losses both seen and unseen. Families torn apart, friendships broken, trust shattered. The government releases initial reports, cautiously optimistic, yet unable to hide the severity of the damage. Crime statistics show a sharp spike during the purge hours. Injuries, robberies, and even deaths that will take years to fully comprehend. Emergency services begin a massive cleanup and recovery operation, working around the clock to restore order and provide aid. Politicians face fierce scrutiny. Supporters argue the experiment was necessary, a painful but effective measure to relieve societal pressures. Critics condemn it as a reckless gamble that endangered countless lives and deepened social divides. Public opinion is fractured, Some call for a halt to future purges. Others demand the government double down and make the event a permanent fixture. Mental health professionals warn of the long-term psychological toll on survivors, while communities grapple with the moral questions raised by sanctioned chaos. Yet amid the ruins, seeds of resilience begin to sprout. Neighborhood groups organize to rebuild and protect. Leaders vow to learn from the trial and find ways to prevent future violence without sacrificing humanity. The Purge experiment may be over for now, but its consequences will shape the United Kingdom's future for years to come. The morning after the first purge, the country listens intently as the Prime Minister steps up to the podium for a live broadcast. Her face is grave but resolute. Behind her, the flags flutter solemnly in the wind, a symbol of unity amid turmoil. "My fellow citizens," she begins, "last night marked a historic moment for our nation. A bold and unprecedented experiment aimed at addressing the deep-rooted challenges we face." She acknowledges the pain and suffering endured during the 6 hours of lawlessness. "We are deeply aware of the fear, the losses, and the trauma many have experienced. No one underestimates the weight of these hours." But she stresses the government's commitment to transparency and careful evaluation. "In the coming 6 months, we will rigorously monitor crime rates, social impacts, and the well-being of our communities. Independent experts, law enforcement agencies, and health professionals will work together to analyze the data. Based on these findings, we will make an informed decision on whether further editions of the Purge are appropriate, and under what conditions." She calls on citizens to stay engaged, to voice their concerns, and to help heal the wounds left behind. This is a moment for reflection, for dialogue, and for collective responsibility. The speech closes with a message of cautious hope. "We face uncertain times, but together we will find a way forward, stronger, wiser, and united." As the broadcast ends, the nation remains suspended between fear and hope, waiting to see what the future holds. The Prime Minister's address echoed through every home, every screen, and every radio across the UK. In living rooms, pubs, and on crowded streets, people gathered to discuss the speech, some with cautious optimism, others with lingering fear and anger. Sarah, a mother from Birmingham, sighed deeply after watching the broadcast. "I appreciate the honesty, but how do you explain the trauma my kids went through last night? 6 hours felt like a lifetime of terror." In contrast, Mark, a young man from Manchester, saw a glimmer of hope. "Maybe this is what it takes to shake things up. I just hope they really listen to the experts before making any more decisions. Social media exploded with debates. Hashtags both supporting and condemning the purge trended for days. Some called for the government to scrap the experiment altogether, while others argued it was a necessary step toward reform. Newspapers ran front-page editorials. One headline read, "A risk too great, the cost of chaos." Another proclaimed, "A nation tested, can the purge heal or hurt UK?" Community leaders and activists organized forums, urging calm and constructive dialogue. Faith groups held vigils for victims and families, calling for peace and reconciliation. Meanwhile, crime analysts and mental health professionals prepared detailed reports, eager to present data that could shape the nation's path. The country stood at a crossroads, a society forced to confront its darkest impulses and decide what kind of future it wanted to build. Amid uncertainty, one truth remained clear. The conversation had only just begun. In an attempt to quell rising crime and social unrest, the government dared to experiment with something unprecedented, a night where the usual rules no longer apply. But as the dust of that first purge settles, a troubling truth emerges. Trying to fight darkness with darkness only deepens the shadows. Rather than curbing violence, the lawless hours appear to have emboldened those willing to cross moral lines. What was meant to release tension instead unleashed cycles of fear, anger, and retribution that ripple far beyond those 6 hours. Families were torn apart, communities fractured, and trust eroded. The very fabric of society strained under the weight of sanctioned chaos. It has become clear that pain cannot be purged by more pain. Injustice cannot be corrected through acts that themselves deny justice. While some see the purge as a necessary evil, many now question if such measures only serve to encourage the very behavior they claim to suppress. This experiment stands as a stark reminder that deep problems require thoughtful solutions, not reckless gambles. Violence breeds violence. Fear feeds fear. Healing comes not from breaking laws, but from building bridges. As the nation grapples with the aftermath, voices rise calling for reflection, compassion, and a renewed commitment to justice that honors the dignity of all. The road ahead is uncertain and fraught with challenges, but also with the chance to learn, to grow, and to reject the false promise that more chaos can bring peace. True change will demand courage. Courage to face uncomfortable truths, to listen to those harmed, and to choose empathy over expedience. Only then can the cycle be broken, and a more just, safer society begin to emerge from the shadows. The experiment may have ended, but its lessons are only just beginning.